So, I've been thinking. I'm back. I bet you missed me. You missed me, didn't you? It's me, Way Out Dan. And I'm outside again. I've got a nice special shirt on from Way Out Life. You can buy all kinds of shirts at Way Out Life of all kinds of cool creatures on them that I've drawn. Why aren't you wearing one? What's wrong with you? Anyways, today I want to talk a little bit about why I sort of believe in Cryptofauna. And this illustrates some concepts of what burden of proof should be and how we should think about evidence. See, it's one thing if someone just comes up to me and says they saw, let's say, the Loch Ness Monster. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know. I didn't see it, so I don't know how well they had, how good their sight was. Maybe it was foggy. Maybe it's a log floating around. Because I don't know that such things exist. And certainly in a lake like that, you don't expect there to be a population of large animals. I mean, where would they hide? Where would they get their food? So I'd be a little skeptical of that. But there are other things that I'm a little bit less skeptical. And to explain why, I'm going to start with something rather mundane that most people wouldn't normally consider cryptofauna, but it helps to illustrate the concept. In New England, sometimes people out in rural areas have claimed to see mountain lions. But it's never been substantiated by an official source. The official line is that mountain lions do not live in New England. And it's, for some reason, become controversial. Some people jumping to one conclusion, others jumping to the other. People always want to say, well, these people are mistaken. They saw a bobcat or something, or just they're exaggerated. They saw a shadow. But I think more likely than not, they saw a real mountain lion. Why do I think that? Well, first of all, mountain lions are real things that exist in the world. So that's number one. Number two, they are known to live in the western half of the U.S., and they're known to travel very long distances sometimes. And I've even heard that they will wander all the way to New England, just very short periods of time, not permanently. But I also know that we don't have every single one tracked and know everything that's going on. So it is extremely likely that a few of them came over, settled in quasi-permanently. Maybe they left a few years later, but that should not be surprising to anyone. The fact that it's so likely that that's happening already, all I need is one person to say they saw one, and I'm going to say they probably saw one. Furthermore, mountain lions used to live in New England in colonial times. And so, it really shouldn't be surprising that people might see them in the area. Because it's, their natural habitat. They're just returning. So, see, that one, I have no problem believing people's claims. I don't question them. I mean, could they be lying? Sure. Could they have mistaken something? Sure. I mean, if someone's life is actually hanging in the balance, like there's a trial and someone's being charged with something that requires a death penalty, and it all hinges on whether there was a mountain lion or not, well, then that's a little different. You need proof beyond a reasonable doubt. But if you're just asking me, do mountain lions live in New England? And that's the only risk is looking stupid on YouTube? I say yes. Of course they do. Some people have said that they've seen them. Pretty simple. Fish jumping around back here. Okay, moving on. Let's move to something a little less nailed down and a little more controversial. Let's talk about Yetis. people in the Himalayan region claim to have seen a large ape-like creature. And, there are legends going way back in their oral histories. And now no one in modern times with like a camera and a good witness has ever proven the existence of the Yeti. So, but here's the thing. Why do I still think that there's probably something to the stories? Well, number one, there have been fossils dug up from that same region of a very large ape-like creature, about 8 feet tall. And it went extinct just a little bit before the first humans are thought to have arrived. And so here's the thing. We don't know the entire fossil record. We don't know the entire archaeological record. They're learning new stuff all the time. It is highly likely that the Yetis, or whatever these ape creatures were, lingered a little longer than they show up in the fossil record, and maybe the humans got there a little earlier than they show up in the archaeological record. It is highly probable that they overlapped, in which case the oral histories are probably based on something real. I mean, it's kind of a strange coincidence. There are stories about a large ape-like creature, and we have physical evidence that there used to be a large ape-like creature. Almost certainly they're related. It would be unlikely for them not to be. Now, do Yetis still live there today? I don't know. I have been told by scientists that there isn't enough food in the region to sustain a population of large animals, a big enough population that they won't have inbreeding. And there would have to be so many of them traveling long distances to get food that someone would have seen them more often than they do. This is what I'm told. But I also know that a lot of assumptions have to go into that model. I know that if the animals spend like 10 months of the year hibernating, they won't need as much food. Because if they have really low metabolisms, they won't need as much food. Maybe they're cold-blooded. I don't know. And so while there is no proof, it's still rather likely. And so, I mean, I'm perfectly open to the idea. If someone claims they've seen one and they come across as a reasonable and reliable person, I'm going to believe them. Okay, let's move on to something even more controversial. Everybody's favorite subject, or at least mine, dragons. There are stories of dragons from all over the world. Now, what is a dragon exactly? Well, in some cultures, they use the exact same word for snake and dragon. And so it seems like they started as just tales about large snakes. And in that case, well, they're certainly real. We know that large snakes exist today. We know that even larger snakes have existed in the past in the fossil record. So if that's all a dragon is, then there you go. They exist. But of course, there's more to it than that. Across the world, there's some common attributes. In many of the stories, these large snake-like creatures are associated with water. They are water serpents. They also have short limbs, so they're not just your typical snake. They also either breathe or produce flame or sparks in some way, out of the mouth or nose. Those are the three commonalities across many cultures. Now, there are other things that come up too. For example, this idea, some of them, there's this idea that they can kill you with their stare. There's also an idea that they have human-like intelligence. Those are only in a few places and seem to have been invented later. Also, the idea that dragons have wings seems to be a European invention in the Middle Ages. It was new at that time. Before that, dragons didn't have wings. And so, of course, a lot of fantasy has been built on these stories. But the fact that the stories are so widespread makes me wonder, where did they come from? Were they all independently invented with the same kind of attributes? Or is it all based on some earlier story when all humans came from the same place? Wherever it is they evolved, I guess in Africa is the mainstream theory, was it there that they came up with a story and then that story was just passed on everywhere that people went, with some variations coming in to play? It's possible, but why don't we have more stories like that? Well, we do. We have the flood stories, but there's not too many others that I've heard of. Or is the most likely thing that these are based on real animals that had a very wide geographical range? How likely is it that there was a large snake-like creature that lived in the water and breathed fire? Not that unlikely. We know from the fossil record that snakes used to have legs. So, there could be a large snake-like creature with very short legs living in the water. We also know from the fossil record that there were animals such as long-necked plesiosaurs and elasmosaurs, which could have appeared like snakes if they were under the water and you couldn't see their body. If you just saw their neck poking out, you might think, ooh, water serpent. As for breathing fire, there is precedent for something similar. The bombardier beetle is the one that people always bring up when they're thinking of things like this. It has, at the back end of its abdomen, a couple glands with two different chemicals, and when it's threatened, it squirts these two chemicals out, they mix in the presence of air, and they go pop, make a little mini explosion to scare off its enemies. So there's precedent for stuff like that. Is it possible that there was a large reptile with some sort of glands near the mouth that could squirt them, mix them with air, and why not? Evolution has done even crazier things than that. It's not that far-fetched at all. And we know of many large reptilian creatures in the fossil record. Take the crested hadrosaurs, for example. What were those crests used for? Were they just for display, like to get mates? They have all kinds of hollow passages connecting the nasal passages. Some people have suggested that they could sing like birds and stuff. Or even speak. Maybe. But it could also have been a place for the chemicals to mix, or maybe that's where the glands were. Who knows? Now, you might say, well, plesiosaurs, elasmosaurs, hadrosaurs, they went extinct millions and millions of years before humans evolved. Okay, that's mainstream thinking, but we know the fossil record is very incomplete. It's kind of hit or miss. They're discovering new things all the time. And, of course, there was a fish known as the coelacanth, which was thought to have died out with the dinosaurs, until some South African fishermen brought one up from the depths. It was dead, but recently dead. And it's since been seen alive. So, there are things called ghost lineages that don't show up in the fossil record because there's only been a very few of them alive, and just for whatever reason, we're never in the right place at the right time to become fossilized. It's really hit or miss. So is it possible some hadrosaurs, elasmosaurs, or plesiosaurs lingered into early human history? I don't see why not. One more thing. There is the so-called Komodo dragon, which is a large lizard in Indonesia. It had a cousin that went extinct something only like 10,000 years ago, not that long ago. in Australia. It overlapped with the first people there. And there are cave drawings in Australia of a large lizard-like creature. Looks a lot like a Komodo dragon. And it has drawings of what appear to be flames coming out of the mouth. I can't imagine what else that drawing is supposed to symbolize. Is it eating a pine tree top first? I mean, what else could it be other than flames? That's what it looks like. Now that really has to make you think. Now the thing is, Komodo dragons have bacteria in their mouth that when they bite their prey, it causes sepsis to set in their blood, and it eventually, their prey succumbs, and then they can eat it. The way they're ambush predators. They bite, and then they stand back and wait for their prey to die. Sometimes it takes like 3 days while the lizard follows it. It's a terrible way to go when you got this thing following you all the time, and you're getting more and more exhausted. Could something like that have led to the legends about flame? It's more likely something like venom could have led to that. And we know there are venomous lizards and venomous snakes, certainly. Could an early human have been bitten and said, oh, it feels like flame, feels like it's on fire? And then from that, the legend came that it actually breathes fire rather than it just being venom? I don't know, but it seems unlikely that all across the world people would interpret it the same way. The more likely explanation is this was literal fire with visible flames. Or at least smoke of some kind. Maybe dark breath, and then they assume there's fire? I don't know. A lot of speculation. But it's very likely that something like that lived at one time. We just don't know because we don't have the soft tissues preserved, and we don't see these animals alive today. Going by fossils, you can't really tell. Anyways, those are my 2 cents on the situation. Please have a debate in the comments section. Keep it nice or not, I don't care. If you like to support me and the channel, I've got shirts at wayoutlife.com with dragons on them. This is actually not a dragon. It is a marine reptile, though. I do have pictures of dragons, though. And I've also got hats, mugs there. I sell books on Amazon. You can find all these links in the description. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.